So we now turn ourselves to private and local orders of the day. So I call on private and local order of the day number 1.
Hutt City Council Graffiti Removal Bill, third reading.
Mr Speaker.
I call the Honourable Trevor Mallard.
Mr Speaker, I move that the Hutt City Council Graffiti Removal Bill be now read a third time. Now, Mr Speaker, very early in this debate I'm feeling a little bit of confusion because the run sheet that I've got says Minister speaks here, and I just want to know whether or not, Mr Speaker, there's been an event, an invitation from Mr Key or an election or what the story is. But I'll assume in fact that the member in charge of the bill should appropriately speak now. Mr Speaker, this is a bill which is a relatively simple little bill, one from the Hutt City Council, one that is the brainchild of Ray Wallace, the Mayor, during a very good Mayor of the independent city. Well, no, I wouldn't say we're a republic, Mr. Speaker, but an area that is proud of its independence. Ray Wallace, when running for Mayor, made graffiti an important issue as part of his campaign, and as part of that exercise we went through some of the things that could be done to reduce graffiti in Hutt City. And it's fair to say there's been considerable amount of progress. I think that Mr O'Sullivan's team, Dave O'Sullivan, anyone who has any knowledge of rugby league history in New Zealand will know former Detective Sergeant O'Sullivan, who was a pretty mean second rower. I think part of the Wainuiomata Champions team in the early 1990s. He has taken charge of the contracting for removing graffiti, and they work very, very well. They work quickly. The Hutt City works on the basis that when this rubbish is up, it's better to get it down as soon as possible. They can take it down from places which are it can be viewed from public places, especially from roads, where it's on council. They have arrangements with Telecom and New Zealand Railways and a number of others, the power companies, to get rid of the stuff immediately. And as a result of that, the place looks a lot better. But there are some things, Mr Speaker, which cannot be done. They also do private property. The council works on the basis that if they've got an expert team, they're going around every day around the city anyway, they're better to use that team and their expertise with paint and matching in order to paint private property with the consent of the property owners. And the vast majority of property owners are wrapped. The council. Some people tell me that they didn't even know that they had graffiti on the fence, and they get a knock on the door from the contractors from the council offering to paint it out. And I think it's a damn good service, and it's something that we're proud of in the Hutt. But unfortunately, there are a few people who come really into two categories. One, the owners of abandoned buildings. These are people who often offshore, or people who haven't got tenants in the buildings, or very occasionally have dubious people who are in those buildings, and it's hard to get a response as to whether or not the building, the graffiti should be painted out, because to date it's always done with consent. The effect of this bill is to give the council right to, after an appropriate period of notice, about 10 days notice, couple of weeks effectively, 10 working days, although these people do work more than 5 days a week. But after a couple of weeks notice, in writing, if there has not been a negative response from the landowner, it means that the council or its contractors will be able to go onto the property and to get rid of the graffiti. And Mr Speaker, that seems like a logical thing to do. I mean, there's a doubt about the period. I think these days with emails and other electronic contacts, and that's the way that most contact occurs out of the Hutt now. Most people pay their rates. We've got lots of wonderful mails in the Hutt, including email, Mr. Robertson. Mr. Speaker, an email, there's a question of with an email delivery method, whether in fact that might be better and the period might be shorter. But the view was that because this law is new and steps into an area which previously councils around New Zealand have not, it was better to be a bit conservative in bringing it in as to notice periods. But I do want to make the point, there is a point of balance, because the effect of that is that you do leave graffiti up for longer than would otherwise be the case, which slightly defeats the purpose. Mr. Speaker, there's quite a strong view in the Hutt that the presence of graffiti or tagging signals a lack of social cohesion. It does give sometimes a perception, generally an unfair perception of danger, and there's no doubt that it has an effect on property values for the properties that are around the abandoned properties. And therefore our view is that it has a detrimental effect on our city and on the image and on the well-being, the feeling of well-being of people, and that's why we want to get rid of it. Mr. Speaker, the Summary Offences Act does provide legal grounds to deter offenders and to do some graffiti control. However, Mr. Speaker, often the people who do this are, frankly, sneaky little bastards who, Mr. Speaker, Sorry? Well, they quite often are, Mr. Speaker.
He's not referring to the Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, they are people who sneak in, they do the graffiti, they sneak away, and too often are not caught in a way that they can be prosecuted. And what also is not available under the Act is the ability, as I've indicated, to go onto private property or other property that's visible from a public place and clean it off without the consent and as part of the package of measures. And I want to say some of them are negative, the painting out, the decision to prosecute people when caught defacing public property. Those are negative, but there's a lot of positive stuff goes on with youth in the Hutt, and there's an attempt to divert people like Councillor Ken Laban doing a wonderful job in the sports area, because there's a view that the kid in sport is not in court, and that is that sort of activity is very positive. And even, Mr. Speaker, although the form of art is not one which I naturally warm to, it is often the case that many of these young people are in fact talented artists, and if they can be channelled towards murals and other things, then very positive things can happen. And I think anyone who's visited the old, what we call the old village, people call it Homedale in Wainuiomata, the village on the way down to the Rimataka Forest Park, beautiful park, people should visit it. Mr. Speaker, going through that village, there is a wonderful mural of Tana Umanga and Piriwepu. And I think that's been up now for maybe 5 or 6 or 7 years. And I tell you what, that does not get vandalised. No one touches that mural because there's a community ownership. In fact, some of the people who were painted it and might properly have been described as the little bastards of the time have now grown up, Mr. Speaker, and they're quite big. And Mr. Speaker, I think any suggestion that would be attacked, in fact, wouldn't happen. Mr. Speaker, I want to congratulate the Mayor of Lower Hutt, the Hutt City Mayor Ray Wallace, for his war on graffiti. I want to thank the Select Committee for the very good work that they did on the bill. I think the changes they made were an improvement to the bill. I want to thank the Chair of the Select Committee for the way that she chaired it in a way which I'm sure a number of her colleagues could have lessons from. from her to improve their abilities. And Mr Speaker, I commend the bill to the House.
The question is that the motion be agreed to. I call the Honourable Member Nikki Wagner.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker, and I'm absolutely delighted to support